Sweetest friends, I'm not sure if anybody is actually watching live online, but continuing regardless if anyone is here or anyone is watching. There's Katie, Shalom Aleichem. Just continuing no matter what, that's the plan, which in itself, there's Yael. There's a certain type of avoda, certain type of service of Hashem, just to make a decision that you're continuing to go. Whether Ayeh is here, Ayeh is getting married in 2 days, so I don't expect Ayeh to be here. Whether you're here, and I'm so grateful that you're here, Shalom Aleichem. But there's one guy, or woman, I don't know who wrote to me. Someone wrote to me on YouTube, because I put the videos on YouTube afterwards. And I mentioned last weekend I'm going to continue giving the class no matter what. And this person wrote to me, I would come to the class, but I would watch online, but I'm sleeping when you give the class. And I don't even know who it is, but Shalom Aleichem to that person, and of course to Katie and Yael. And to my mother, who's going to say to me, why didn't you cut your hair? And the reason is because we're getting to Sfirat Omer, so soon I'll cut my hair, B'ezrat Hashem. And Shena Batsheva, and David, and Avital, and everybody who watches afterwards. And we're continuing now, B'ezrat Hashem, in Torah Yud Bet, really a special Torah. And as I mentioned, we learned this before, but we learned it with the black book here, which doesn't have the extensive commentary of the Oteh Or. And so part of my goal is to read more of the footnotes in Oteh Or, so that we get a deeper picture of the lesson here. But this is, besides the Zamra, I would say this lesson here, which is called Ayeh, is one of these big lessons in Breslov Hasidus. And, the foundation of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Rabbi Nachman ultimately, I guess his teaching is really summarized in this lesson here, in Ayeh. What Rabbi Nachman is trying to give over. Of course, Azamra is like the big lesson, because it's how you function in the world. Nikudot Tovot, looking at the good in everyone and everything. That's the essence of Purim. That's really the essence of our challenge here as a neshama in a physical body in this crazy world, is to find the good in everyone and judge everyone positively and elevate them and ourselves be elevated. But here he goes in this lesson. I'm just going to go back to the beginning text. I'm going to leave out the commentary where we started. Here he gives us a little chizuk, a little strengthening us in our relationship with Hashem. When when a person follows their own thoughts and their own intellect, meaning you don't follow halacha. Yachol lipol b'taoyot v'michsholot rabim. A person can fall into many mistakes and many traps. V'lavo lidei ra'ot gedolot chas v'shalom, and to come to doing terrible things, God forbid. V'yeshikin kilu arbei, and there are those that really messed up lots of others. Kagon rashaim gedolim ma'od ha'mefursamim, like the very famous evil people, and we mentioned Shabtai Tzvi and Jacob Frank, who he is specifically talking about here. Shehitu et ha'olam, that they fooled the whole world, or they caused the whole world to transgress. V'kol haya al yedei chochmatam v'sichlam, and all of it was the result of their thinking and their wisdom. And on the way over here, I was thinking about Kobe Oz. I don't know if you heard of, for sure Yael has heard of Kobe Oz. He's a famous Israeli musician. Started the band called Tipex, which was the whiteout that we used to put on paper when we were typing. But apparently he got sued by Tipex, even though there probably is no such thing anymore. And so they changed the name to T-Pax, which is very funny. Anyhow, a very famous band here in Israel. They wrote a lot of famous songs. And there was a period, I don't know where he's standing right now, or where he's holding right now, but he was on a path of tshuva, because there were secular yeshivas. I don't know if you heard of the secular yeshivas. So there were Jews in Tel Aviv that were upset that yeshivot were getting funding. So they said, we're starting a secular yeshiva, and we're going to learn Jewish texts, we're going to learn Gemara and Halacha, we're going to learn everything, and we're going to do it from a secular point of view. And they got funding. And people went, and one of them was Kobe Oz, and for at least a while he was learning Gemara every day. He wrote a beautiful song. I don't know if the song is called Zalman, but Zalman is the main character. If you type in Kobe Oz Zalman, the song will come up. It's one of these songs that gives me tears when I hear it, really. It's him summarizing his religious journey in a song. So I watched an interview with him when I heard this. It was a few years ago. And what was one of the things that the secular yeshiva came up with? They said, okay, we want to keep Shabbos, but we don't want to keep a halachic Shabbos. So what are we going to do? We're not going to take the fast road when we drive on Shabbos. We're going to take the slow road on Shabbos and make ourselves drive slowly. Now this is exactly what Rabbi Nachman is talking about, because of course you can't drive on Shabbos. It's totally against halacha. Even if you had an electric car that could pick you up on Shabbos, that probably b'diavad, after the fact, would probably be okay, especially for some medical reason. But it certainly takes away from the spirit of Shabbos, and so this whole thing will only bring people to transgress. And the only way that you can actually connect with Hashem and grow spiritually is through halacha, which is the reason that it survived since ancient times, since the destruction of the temple. So anybody that tries to use their own figuring things out, in the end, they're going to come to transgress and to make mistakes and to just cause themselves more suffering in the end. V'ikar yahadut hu rak lelech b'tmimut ufshitut. And what is the main way of being a Jew? What's the main point of Judaism? It's to walk in the service of Hashem with simplicity and innocence. And the quote for that is from Devarim, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. You should be pure and innocent when you're with Hashem. That's where that comes from. That's where the idea comes from. What does that mean? It means don't be sophisticated. Don't try to overthink things. If Shabbos means that you're supposed to do the following things on Shabbos, you do the following things on Shabbos, and you don't try to make up your own way of keeping Shabbos. Bli shum chokhmot, without any sophistication. Listakel b'chol davar she'oseh sheyeh sham Hashem yitbarach. You should look at everything that you're doing, and you should find Hashem in that thing that you're doing. Kedei sheyu ma'asav rak lichvod Hashem yitbarach, so that a person's actions will only be for the sake of Hashem. And we talked about kavod Hashem last time. I translated into glory, and glory into gal ori, and interpreted that this is from Reb Shalom's interpretation of saying that it's bringing Hashem's light into the world, which really fits with what we're learning here. You have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing bringing more of Hashem's light into the world, or not bringing any, or reducing Hashem's light in the world? That's the question that he's saying here. Everything that you do, ask yourself, am I bringing more or bringing less? More light, less light. Livli la'ashkiach klal an kvod atzmo. Without being concerned about your own honor. And that's what we read, this whole long footnote last week, so I'm not going to go back to that. Rak im yesh bazeh kavod Hashem yitbarach yaseh. Only if it's going to bring more of Hashem's honor, glory, or light into the world, then a person should do it. V'im lav, and if not, then love, then don't do it. V'azai bivadai lo kesher le'olam, and then for sure you will never fail, you will never be tripped up at all. So I'm thinking of something that I personally have. There's somebody who, I don't know how to explain it without giving too many details. But there's somebody who does something that contributes to one of the shuls that I daven in, and the person doesn't want to come to shul anymore. And so I decided that I'm going to take over his job along with leading the davening on Friday night. And then I thought to myself, well, what happens if the person comes back? So the answer is, if he comes back, then he goes back to doing his job, and I go back to not doing his job. And if he doesn't come back, I continue doing his job. Meaning that I actually had a thought, because the person kind of upset me. I was going to say to him, don't come back. We don't need you anymore. But that's not bringing Hashem's light into the world. That's just feeding my own ego. So I'm explaining the personal dilemma that I had. How am I going to deal with this problem? And in the end, I said, it's very simple. You don't have to make it complicated. I'm going to do his job, his role in the shul. If he comes, he'll do it. If he doesn't come, I'll do it. End of story. So that's an example of doing things in a simple way. If we go back and read the text now, maybe it'll make a little more sense. Only if it's going to bring more of Hashem's light into the world, then you do it. Im lav, and if not, then don't do it. And then you're not going to get yourself tripped up. And even when a person trips up and falls into doubts, God forbid, that a person is doubting themselves. Is what I'm doing really going to bring Hashem's light into the world or not? Is it going to bring more of Hashem's awareness into the world or not? Zohi gam ken bchina shel nefila. Just the fact that you're questioning yourself whether the thing that I'm going to do is the right thing or not the right thing, that in itself is a falling down, a tripping up. Since we've already merited it to receive the Torah, how can a person not have the clarity to see what's right and what's wrong when it comes to bringing Hashem's light into the world? How could a person, since we have the Torah, we know halacha, we know what's supposed to be done, what's not supposed to be done, then how could a person think the opposite of the right thing? Dahainu, here, I'll give you an example of it. Okay, there's a Chabad house. Chabad has gone very far with the Chabad houses, and some of them, some of the shluchim and some are self-appointed shluchim, have gone outside the framework of a normal Chabad house and opened up experimental Chabad houses. So I remember seeing one in Manhattan. I don't even remember what it was called. It was basically a bar. And it was opened by somebody, a Chabadnik, who is there as a Chabadnik, but it's just a bar. It looks like a bar, and people come and dance and flirt with one another and smoke cigarettes, and in the midst of it is this Chabadnik that set up the place. Now, I would say that's a place where you're really asking yourself, is this for Kavod Hashem or not? Because obviously his intention was that it would be for Kavod Hashem. Because he wanted to create a place. He said, okay, people are going to bars, and they're dancing, and they're flirting, and they're hooking up and smoking and all these things. So why don't they do it in my bar, so that I can then talk with them and get to know them and have a relationship with them and maybe bring them to do tshuva. And I think this is the gray area that Rabbi Nachman is talking about here. That really you have to ask yourself, is that the proper thing for a rabbi to make a bar like that and to be in a bar like that? And I don't have the answer. I'm guessing the rabbi, when he gets older, will have the answer. But that's an example of what Rabbi Nachman is talking about. Dahainu, im ze kvod Hashem o kvod atzmi. Is this for Hashem's honor or is this for my honor? Ela shesafek ze hu rak mipnei shesichlo mebubal. The fact that a person has this doubt, this question, means that his intellect, his thinking is mixed up. Because if it wasn't mixed up, there would be no question. It would be very clear. No bar. Period. Seems like a good idea, but not here. That's my answer. No bar. You can maybe stand outside the bar. Maybe do something else. But for you to open the bar, I think that's going too far. ולכן, ספק זה נחשב לבחינה של נפילה גדולה. And so this doubt is in itself is considered a great downfall. ויש שנפילתו גדולה מאוד מאוד רחמנא ליצלן. And sometimes this downfall is so great, God forbid, שנופל לספקות והרהורים באמונה, that it brings a person to have doubts and heretical thoughts in their faith in Hashem. ומההר אחר השם יתברך בכל מיני שאלות וחקירות. And it causes a person to then have thoughts where they start asking all kinds of questions and trying to come up with philosophical arguments over whether Hashem this, Hashem that. So if we take this rabbi, and I have no idea who this is, I just saw it years ago. For all I know, it doesn't exist anymore. Let's just pretend, and it's not an accusation of the person that opened the bar. But let's say every night this guy is opening a bar. Maybe it's even open on Shabbos, I have no idea. Maybe the drinks are free on Shabbos, I don't know. And somebody says to him at some point, what you're doing is not okay. You're seeing women that are exposed and not dressed in a tsanua way, and this whole environment is not a place for a Torah scholar and a rabbi. And so now the guy, instead of saying, you're right, I'm shutting it down, he wants to justify it. And so he's going to say, is that really so? I mean, didn't Avraham Avinu go out to the Arabs that came to visit him when he had his Brit Milah? I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. And come up with some question, come with some justification, which is the chakirot. And then the person might be even asking himself, Hashem, do you really care if I see women that are not dressed modestly, if ultimately I'm trying to bring them to light Shabbos candles? This is the gray space that a person like that ends up in, and that's what Rabbi Nachman is talking about. And he says, just the fact that you're even asking these questions, that in itself is a downfall. And what's the reason? Because if we go back just a few lines up, it says here, V'ikar hayadut hu rak lerech b'tmimut ufshitut. Bifshitut, that's hard to say. Bifshitut. The whole point of Judaism is to serve Hashem with simplicity and innocence. And so if you're getting to this place where my theoretical rabbi is asking himself these questions and even asking Hashem, is it such a bad thing that I see a modest women if I'm trying to get them to light Shabbos candles? Then you've already distanced yourself from the innocence and the purity. Afal pi chen, nonetheless, im ha'adam zoche lechapes be'emet achar kvodo yitbarach. But if a person merits to seek out, to go after and seek truly Hashem's honor and glory and light in this world, hanefila va'yirida hi tachlit ha'aliyah. And this is what we're going to focus on tonight. This is what's so important. The downfall and the tripping up and the downfall are ultimately for the purpose of the aliyah, of going back up. So there's two big footnotes here. The first one, this is just very simple. And this is from in the Likutey Moharan. Tzarich liyot yirida kodem aliyah. In order for there to be an ascent, there has to be a descent. Ki ha'yirida hi tachlit ha'aliyah. Because when something goes down, its ultimate purpose is to go back up. Because if a person wants to take, for example, a large stone, and you want to throw it, you have to go all the way down to the ground and use your whole body and throw it in the sky, throw it up. And that means that if my starting point was, here I'm going to take that tzedakah box that I have here for when people want to donate to Shabbos meals. My goal is to throw this in the air. I have to go down in order for it to go up. It has to go down in order for it to go up. But when I started, the idea was that it would go up. So that's what Hashem is thinking about us. So when we go down, we think, Hashem, why are you taking me down? Because Hashem's ultimate goal was to bring you up. And in order to bring you up, He had to take you down. But it started with the goal of bringing you up. כי אי אפשר לעלות מדרגה למדרגה, כי אם על ידי ירידה שקודמת לעלייה. A person cannot go up from one spiritual level to the next spiritual level until they have previously gone down one level. And that will happen, by the way, in a spiritual way. If a person is growing spiritually, they're expanding their vessels for receiving more of Hashem's light, they will hit a wall. And they will one day think back, when I started keeping Shabbos was so holy. And now I just keep looking at the clock and waiting for Shabbos to finish. What happened to when Shabbos was so holy? How could it be that I've been keeping Shabbos for such a long time, but I'm now down on a lower spiritual level than I was when before I was on a lower spiritual level? It doesn't make any sense. And the analogy that I always give, I don't know if people played video games when I was a kid. I played a lot of video games. I don't play them anymore, but played them back then. And the video games were very simple back then. Pac-Man, for example. Right? What did Pac-Man do? You went around the board, you ate everything, and then when you reached the level, went and the colors changed. That's it. Sometimes the fruit changed, the colors changed, and now it went faster. So that's what happens to us. When we go up a level, we lose where we were before. So you can say, well, why is my Pac-Man going faster now? Before it was much easier when it was going slower, because now you moved up a level. So every time you move up a level, I guess Pac-Man wasn't the best example. Other games, you have like armor and swords and weapons and all these things, and then you go up a level and they take them all away, and you start all over again. That's a better example. And you can say, well, why did you take everything away? You took it away so that you can earn it on a higher level. It's just like with everything here. I'm thinking about weightlifting now. So you lift, 10 kilos, lifting 10 kilos, and then it gets easy for you. So you have to add more. So you add 15 kilos, or you do 12 and a half now. And it's a little harder. And you could say, well, why am I lifting harder weights when before it was easier? Because I want to get stronger. So that's the concept. That every Yerida is l'tzorech aliyah, for the purpose of going up. V'chein katuv b'likutey halachot, and so it's written in Likutey halachot. Haklal, the rule is shekol adam bezman, b'chol zman, tzarich sheyeh lo kama v'chama aliyot v'yeridot kol yimei chayav. Every person, sometime during their life, throughout their whole life, is going to have many, many ups and downs. All the days of their life, until their final days. If I think back to my grandparents, all of them, they all had problems until their last day, maybe even their last second. Ki אי אפשר לעלות ממדרגה למדרגה, because you can't go up from one level to the next. Ki im על ידי ירידה שקודם העלייה. Unless first there's a descent before going up. כי הירידה היא תכלית העלייה כמובן. Because the descent is for the ultimate purpose of an ascent. You wanted to go up, but first you had to go down in order to go up. You can't just go up and up and up and up and up. ומחמת אלה ירידות הרבה נכשלו ונפלו מאוד. Because we have so many of these downfalls, many people have misunderstood them and simply stayed there. They fell into the trap of the downfall. כי צריך אז התחזקות גדול, because you need a lot of inner strengthening yourself, encouraging yourself, inspiring yourself. Shehu b'chinat azut kedusha b'chol hab'chinot. And this is holy chutzpah in all aspects. And what does that mean? That means when you fall down, you say to Hashem, I don't care if you beat me again and again and again, I'm going to get up every time. I don't care how hard it is, I'm going to get up every time. Hashem, there's no way I'm giving up. That's azut kedusha. Because normally you would think, like when I was a kid, we kids used to actually beat each other up quite a lot. Especially the Russian immigrants, they were the best street fighters amongst the Jewish kids. I got hit in the face so many times by this Russian kid, I think his name was Ayeh, I don't even remember. And every time he tricked me, every time he'd go like this, ooh, and then the next one would be an actual punch in my face. Like, how did you do that? And so imagine, you get beaten down by somebody. You're beaten, and then you're just like, okay, I'm staying. I'm not getting up, right? That's logical. But if every time you got up, and the guy beats you again, and you get up, and the guy's like, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. That's azut kedusha. That's holy craziness, that holy chutzpah, that you're going to get up no matter what. No matter how hard Hashem makes you, you're going to get up. And as we see with our senses in the physical world, if we want to throw a stone, a heavy stone up into the air, first you have to bring your hand down below in order to throw the stone up above. צריך ליפול ממדרגה והקרבה שהיה, is that what it is? והקרבה שהיה לו קודם בעבודת Hashem. A person has to fall, I think it's הקרובה, maybe I'm wrong. A person has to fall from, מהרגש והקרבה, now I got it. The person has to fall from the feeling and the closeness that they had beforehand in their service of Hashem, meaning the familiarity. You have whatever was comfortable for you, now you're not going to be comfortable. Every time you think you get to a comfortable place with Hashem, Hashem's going to make it harder for you. כדי לעורר אצלו את הרצון להתעורר, in order to arouse within a person the desire to be inspired, ולצאת ממקום הירידה, and to go out from the place that you went down to, v'leitkarev el Hashem, and to come close to Hashem. And that's the point. So Hashem is going to knock you down in order for you to get up. But if you forget that you're supposed to get up, you'll stay in the place that you were knocked down, and that's not the point. Okay, so now we're going to read a big footnote and then read the end of the section, and we're done. As is brought in Likutey Moharan. This is what it says. The rule is Haratzon Lashem Yitbarach. The Hashem's desire is Asher Rak Bishvil Zeh Baha Adam La'olam Hazeh. This is the sole reason that a person comes into this world. Shehu Ikar Atachlit Shel Adam. This is the whole purpose of a person's creation. Why did Hashem create you? This is the reason. V'zeu b'chinat yirida kodem aliyah. Because it's a descent before an ascent. Shekodem sheyesh la'adam aliyah ba'avodat Hashem. Now if I want to go back even further, and I mentioned this before many times, why, if our soul is in the supernal realms and already in the highest places in heaven, does it want to come down into this world? You're already there, so why come down here? And the reason is to earn your keep, to earn your place, because the soul was given a free gift. But now when it comes into this world, it gets to earn it. And that's why the soul asked to come down into this world. Everybody's soul asked to come into this world. And you can think, well, there are people that I know that are so depressed and suffering so much. For sure, their soul, if they knew what they were going to go through in this world, they wouldn't come down to this world. But it says in the Gemara, and it's quoted also in the Tanya, that the soul takes an oath before it comes into this world. It's going to be a tzaddik and not a rasha. What does it mean to be a tzaddik and not a rasha? It means that when you fall down, you're going to get back up. Tzaddik, I forgot the exact phrase. Tzaddik nofel sheva ba'amim v'kam. Tzaddik falls 7 times and gets up. I think it's in Tehillim. And the meaning is that when you take that oath that you're going to come into this world and you're going to be a tzaddik, you're essentially taking the oath that you will get up and you will not stay down even when you're knocked down. So why do we come down to this world? In order to earn our place. But how do we do it? Before a person grows closer in their service of Hashem, has an elevation in their service of Hashem, you first have to have a descent before the ascent. Because the going down is for ultimately the purpose of going up. And at first glance, this seems like a wondrous, bizarre thing, and it's not clear, it's not understood. Madua al yedei hayirida daika yizkel aliyah. Why is it specifically that I have to go down in order to go back up? Right? Hashem can do anything. So why doesn't Hashem just make aliyah, mi aliyah, mi aliyah? Just go up and up and up and up. Ach, ki ikar ma sheba ha'adam le'olam hazeh ubishvil haratzon. What is the reason that a person comes into this world? It's for desire. Hashem's desire and our desire. Not desire for things, but desire to come close to Hashem. Asher bishvil ze uchracha aneshama lered laze ha'olam ha'rachok beyoter. And that's the reason that the soul has to come down into this most distant world, meaning the world that Hashem is the least seen in all of the revelations of Hashem in any physical way. So that a person's desire to come close to Hashem will increase because of the great distance that we have from Hashem. Because we're in a world where Hashem can't be seen and Hashem can even be denied. One of my daughters has this book with a middle finger on it called Foy. It's insane. By Shalom Ashlander. It's translated into Hebrew. This guy is mentally ill, I think. A guy who grew up probably some type of modern Orthodox and became the biggest Epicurus in America right now. And he just writes disgusting things about Judaism, and that's how he made his career. And so you could say, okay, here is a guy who can make a living by making fun of Judaism, making fun of Hashem. That's the type of world that we're in. We're in a world that, because imagine you were trying to make a living making fun of the king. That we have a king, or Stalin, or Putin, or whoever it is. You know, you're trying to make a living, trying to make fun of Putin. Putin's just going to kill you. But in this world, not only does Hashem not kill you, He sustains you. He continues to give you everything, despite the fact that somebody like that would write a book and make his living from it. An came. So, כשיורד ונופל לאיזה תאווה או עבירה חס ושלום. So when a person falls down and has some desire to do a transgression, God forbid, or something that they shouldn't do, ואזי נתרחק יותר ויותר, and as a result of it, they could just get further and further away. So, say a person has a desire to eat treif, and they just can't help themselves. They have to go to that non-kosher restaurant, they have to eat treif. That is going to distance them more and more and more from Hashem. And the other way around, the second that a person says, I'm only keeping kosher, and there are different levels of being strict about kosher, and say, I'm being very strict about keeping kosher, I'm making sure that I'm really keeping kosher, you will find that just that change will bring a person closer and closer to Hashem, and so it is with every area of the mitzvot. V'azai im zoche achar kach lahazkir et atzmo v'lashuv b'tshuva laHashem yitbarach. And so if it happens to be that afterwards a person merits to remember who they are and to do tshuva and come back to Hashem, then for sure the person's desire to be close to Hashem is going to get stronger and stronger, because once they fell into the trap, they did the things that they weren't supposed to do, now they're doing the right things, now their will to come closer to Hashem is stronger and stronger. ומחימת שיודע בעצמו גודל ריחוקו מהשם יתברך על ידי ריבוי עוונותיו. Because a person truly knows how far away they are from Hashem as a result of all the transgressions that they did. They really know it. ועל כן בוודאי רצונו חזק ותקיף ואמיץ מאוד מאוד להשם יתברך בלי שיעור וערך. And so a person's desire to be close to Hashem is so strong and so powerful and so courageous, so much so, without any measurement or value whatsoever. An ken yachol liskot an yedei zeh daika le ma'ala yetera. And so a person through this can reach an even higher place of coming close to Hashem. I'll give you a simple example. A person that, God forbid, is not healthy. And they understand that if they change the way they eat and they start exercising, really just like that simple, they don't have to do anything else, then they'll be healthy. And if they're really convinced of this, they'll start doing it. And they will have a motivation to reach a place that nothing else could have motivated them. Because God forbid they were so sick, they were in the hospital or something like that, they were on heavy medication, surgery, who knows what. If they knew that if I just stopped eating these things and started eating these things and doing this, then I will be healthy, they will have a higher motivation than somebody who didn't experience that. And we shouldn't have to experience that. So that's why through this a person can reach a higher spiritual level. Just like the person, the example that I just gave, would reach a higher level of commitment to health than probably somebody else. Because in the place where Baalei Tshuva, for repentees, people come back to Judaism, or come back to Hashem to join mitzvot, they stand, even complete tzaddikim can't stand. And the reason is because a tzaddik gamor starts at this level, and it might have his own yeridot and aliyot, ups and downs, but he never reaches the place that a Baal Tshuva had to reach, which was all the way down there on the floor. And since the Baal Tshuva came from the floor, it is going up higher, the Baal Tshuva, the tzaddik can never stand in the place where the Baal Tshuva was. Ki heim, and this is in Brachot, Masechet Brachot, Ki heim zochim leratzon chazak yoter mechimat shenitrachaku yoter. The Baal Tshuva has a greater desire to be close to Hashem because they were once further from Hashem. And so before a person is going to go up a higher spiritual level, they have to first have a going down, a downfall. Ki, Yerida means really just going down, not a downfall. Nefilah is a downfall. Ki kol ha'aliyah ha'aliyot v'madrigot, because all of the going up and all of the spiritual levels the person goes up, hem b'chinat haratzon. They are dependent on a person's desire. Ukamavan midivrei Rabbeinu Zal, and as is understood from the words of our sage's blessed memory. Meaning your desire. The closer you want to get to Hashem, the higher you can go. And the stronger your desire, the less you will be knocked down by the obstacles and the difficulties that come your way. V'al ken k'she'adam tzarich la'alot aliyah gdola yoter. And so when a person has to go up an even higher spiritual level, hainu she'yizke leratzon yoter v'yoter, that is, they should have a higher level of wanting to be close to Hashem. B'vadai tzarich she'yeh lo yirida kodem ha'aliyah. And then of course the person is going to have going down before they go up, in order for their desire to be stronger. That through this a person will merit to have a higher spiritual level. They'll reach a higher spiritual place. Because the stronger your desire is, that in itself is an aliyah, is going up. La'adam yirida kodem aliyah, when a person has a descent before an ascent, truly, hu az b'sakana atzuma, the person is in grave danger. Ki arbei nishku beyiridatam, Rachmana litzlan, because many of them got stuck in that place where they fell. Hashem should save us. Ki afal pi it's true that going down and being distant from Hashem causes a person to have a greater desire. If a person merits to remember the purpose of the going down and to remember how great they are without forgetting to desire and have a great desire always for Hashem, but it could be that when a person fell down and they got distance from Hashem, a person will totally forget about Hashem. And and the person would simply fall into the desires of the negative energy. So you can imagine this. I mean, if you've ever met somebody who grew up in a home, in a religious home, and is no longer religious, this is exactly it. Or somebody became a Baal Tshuva and left the path. It's simply that Hashem knocked them down, and they forgot why they were knocked down. They didn't have in their toolbox this lesson to help them get back up. Shehem ta'avot olam hazeh. What are the desires of the Sitra Achra? They are the earthly desires here, things that are not good for you in a kosher way. Ad sheyochal lishkoach et ratzon dikdusha legamrei, till a person can totally forget why they were created, the holy desire that Hashem had, and their desire to come close to Hashem. V'yam ken be'emet bevadai ashrei mi shelo chata. And for sure, it's wonderful, those that never sinned. Ki gam ha'adam ma shehu melubash be'olam hazeh levad, gam hu gam ken b'sakana gedola. Because I'm going to just give a free interpretation here, with the things that we're exposed to in this world, that in itself is also a danger. Sheyuchal lishkoach et ratzon dikdusha chas v'shalom, that a person can forget Hashem's desire, God forbid. And by the way, this can happen with a person who's completely religious. As Haredi as they come, they can for sure be tripped up and fall. It's not how a person looks and how a person acts, it's really their ratzon, it's their desire, it's what's going on inside of them. Al yidei haratzonot ha'pegumim shel ha'olam hazeh, through the messed up desires that a person can have in this world. Afido al yedei haratzonot shel heter, even desire for things that are permitted. For example, wine is permitted. You can get drunk on wine all the time. Mikol shekain v'chol shekain shechas v'shalom nichshal be'eze avon v'chet v'nitrachek yoter v'yoter, and all the more so, God forbid, when a person falls and gets tripped up in some desire or transgression, and it distances them even more from Hashem, more and more from Hashem, bevadai u'mesukan ma'od, that's very dangerous. Ki yachol chas v'shalom, because it could be, God forbid, lishkoach legamrei et haratzon tekudusha mechimat shenitrachek ma'od. They can completely forget why they were created and why Hashem did this to them in the first place. Aval mi shekvar nichshal be'eze chet ve'avon ve'afilo im hirba lifshora ma'od ma'od, but a person that fell into doing some type of transgression, and even if they transgressed many times, nonetheless, whatever the person did, they did. Nonetheless, if a person will strengthen et atzmo, themselves, an kol panim livli lishkoach Hashem yitbarach, without forgetting Hashem at all, despite the difficulties they're going through, an kol panim, nonetheless, yiskor et atzmo b'chol pam, they will remind themselves, they remember who they are every time, v'yagil et atzmo lichsof lishtokek LaHashem yitbarach b'ratzon chazak tamid, they will remind themselves that I didn't fall down, I have to just get up and come closer to Hashem and desire and to long for coming closer to Hashem always. Zei ikar tshuva. That is how you do tshuva. V'yachol liskot al yedei ze la'aliyah gedola v'chol ha'avonot yitapchu lezchuyot. And a person will merit through doing this by having a great ascent. And all of those transgressions that they did, they'll be turned into merits. Ki yachol liskot leratzon chazak ma'od ma'od v'chimat shenitrachek ma'od. How does a person have the strongest desire to come close to Hashem? Because they were so distant. The further away you are, the closer you can become. Avan, and this is just one sentence here, ve'etzel tzaddik ha'emet, but by the true tzaddik, she'ino to'em ta'am chet, that didn't taste the taste of transgression, na'aset ha'yirida al yedei she'yored lekarev rechukim. How does the tzaddik have an aliyah, have an ascent? He does it by coming close to those that were distant from Hashem and bringing them closer. That elevates the tzaddik, because the tzaddik didn't transgress, so he's not a Baal Tshuva. Nimsa ki liskot liyirida tachlit aliyah, in order to merit to have a descent for the purpose of an ascent, sheshayach rak ksheino רוצה בשום כבוד אחר מלבד כבוד Hashem יתברך. It's only when a person doesn't want any other desire than Hashem's desire, than bring Hashem's light into the world. כי ברגע שרוצה כבוד אחר, because the second that you want your own honor, כבוד Hashem נסתר ממנו בתכלית ההסתרה. Hashem's honor is hidden from the person in the most hidden way, ולא יכול למצוא ירידה בירידה את כבוד Hashem, and the person can't find in their descent Hashem's light, Hashem's honor at all. Okay, so we'll continue with that next week. We're not too close to Pesach yet, but we're getting closer because, of course, Rosh Chodesh is coming up. I'm going to tell you a very short story. Baal Shem Tov and his Hasidim, I'm going to make it even shorter than it's written here. We're traveling, and one time they end up at an inn late at night, and the innkeeper, before they even open the door, the innkeeper opens the door. I see Chaya is watching. Shalom Aleichem to Chaya. He opens the door for them and says, Shalom Aleichem, my friends, come in. They come in. He says to them, I don't have much, but you're welcome to have whatever I have. And he starts making bread for them. He's making soup for them. He's cooking. And he's singing. He's whistling. He's in a good mood. And the Baal Shem Tov sees that there's something very special. And the Hasidim realize that the guy has no idea that the Baal Shem Tov is there. And they say to the Rebbe, he doesn't know who you are. And the Rebbe says, yeah, but he knows what's important. And so the innkeeper serves them this meal, and he tells them jokes, and he is treating them like they're royalty. And the Baal Shem Tov, as he's clearing the table, as the innkeeper is clearing the table, the Baal Shem Tov says, tell me, my friend, what do you do each day? And he says, me, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm just an innkeeper. I'm no Torah scholar. I barely can daven. So the Baal Shem Tov said, that's why I asked you, what do you do each day? He said, well, I get up early in the morning before the sun comes up. I say, Modani, wash my hands, thank Hashem. And then I open the inn, I feed my animals. And when a guest comes in, I feed them, and I make sure everybody's comfortable. Jewish, non-Jewish, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Every person is Hashem's creation, right? And so one of the Hasidim said, what about davening? He said, well, sometimes if I can, I daven shachrit. If I remember, I daven mincha. Sometimes I forget, there's chopping wood and fixing the roof and cooking the meals, and before I know it, the day is over. He said, but every night, it doesn't matter what the weather is, I go outside and I look up at the sky and I say, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm just a simple Jew, I don't know much, but everything I did today, I did it for you. My work, my food, my kindness, I hope it gives you nachas, Hashem. And then I go to sleep, the innkeeper said, and the Baal Shem Tov, he looks at the innkeeper, and he looks at the Hasidim, and he says to them, do you hear that, my sweetest friends? Do you feel that? When this man speaks to Hashem, the angels are quiet, and they listen. And the Hasidim said they don't understand. And one of the Hasidim said, but Rebbe, he doesn't even study Torah. He doesn't daven, he barely prays. The Baal Shem Tov said, every step that he makes is a prayer. His pots and pans are his holy vessels, and the Shekhinah dances in this little inn. And now the Hasidim looked at him differently, and so another Chassid said, well, what about all of our learning and all of our hours of davening? And the Baal Shem Tov said, learning is holy, and prayer is holy, but they're meant to elevate our deeds, not to replace them. This man has made a whole life into an offering. And he looks at the innkeeper and he says, you think you're simple? But to Hashem, you're a king. And the innkeeper said, no, Rebbe, I'm just trying to do the best with what Hashem gave me. And the Baal Shem Tov said, and that's exactly why, in Hashem's eyes, you're royalty. So I love, the little simple stories. And what is the point of the story? That you do what you can with what you have. Just do it with tmimut, upshitut, simplicity and honesty, like the innkeeper, Be'ezrat Hashem, and will also be royalty in Hashem's eyes. So shukach to everybody for sticking around and for watching, and we'll continue next week, Be'ezrat Hashem.